If you've been active on YouTube in recent years, chances are you've come across videos about actress Rachel Zegler, most of which haven't exactly been flattering. She has become a lightning rod for controversy, symbolizing not just the growing disconnect between Hollywood and audiences, but also the self-absorbed, entitled attitude often linked to Gen Z. On top of that, she's the lead in Disney's highly controversial live-action remake of Snow White, a film already shaping up to be a PR disaster. To be fair, no matter who played the lead, Snow White was doomed from the start. The production has been plagued by endless reshoots, an out-of-control budget, and a chaotic creative direction. With the cost now soaring past $300 million, Disney is desperate to recover its investment. But instead of helping the situation, Rachel Zegler has only made things worse. Her outspoken comments about modernizing Snow White into a feminist icon have turned an already struggling film into an even bigger potential box office disaster.
If I'm going to stand there 18 hours in a dress of an iconic Disney princess, I deserve to be paid for every hour that it is streamed on.
Her thoughts about Snow White's prince to stalk someone. No disliking the first Snow White for Rachel Zegler hasn't exactly helped her case either. She's made it clear that she believes she deserves higher pay for her role, once saying that if she's expected to stand around in an iconic Disney princess dress for 18 hours a day, she should be compensated for every single hour. But beyond that, she's also gained a reputation for aggressively clapping back at critics, often targeting those who don't align with her political views, and in some cases, even trying to get them canceled. At this point, Zegler has arguably become the most unlikable celebrity in Hollywood. Despite Disney's PR team scrambling to do damage control, she keeps finding ways to alienate potential audiences at every turn, making her a marketing nightmare. That's part of the reason why the Snow White trailer has been massively ratioed, racking up over 1 million dislikes. But here's the thing. While a lot of this might not be news to you, what I have today is something completely different. This is a story the mainstream media has tried to bury, but if you stick with me, you'll see exactly why it matters. And if you're into exclusive entertainment news like this, make sure to like and subscribe so you never miss an update. Rachel Zegler, Hollywood's manufactured star. One of the biggest criticisms of Rachel Zegler isn't just her attitude, because, let's be real, plenty of Hollywood stars are insufferable these days. The real issue is that she has no real achievements to back up her arrogance. Say what you want about actors like Mark Hamill or Whoopi Goldberg. They may have become overly political and out of touch, but at least they had something to show. For their careers, people still revisit their iconic roles to this day. But what about Rachel Zegler? Honestly, she hasn't had a single major success as an actress. You wouldn't know that from the way the entertainment media treats her, though. Since day one, they've desperately tried to make her a Hollywood-ite girl. It all started in 2018 when Steven Spielberg discovered her wasn't nearly as profitable as the media made it seem. With a total cost of around $180 million, including marketing, the film would have needed to make at least $450 million just to be considered a solid financial success. Instead, it topped out at $349 million worldwide, meaning its actual profit margin was far lower than the headlines suggested. This brings us back to the central issue. Rachel Zegler isn't a box office draw. Despite Hollywood's constant attempts to push her as a rising star, the numbers simply don't back it up. West Side Story was a major flop, Shazam, Fury of the Gods bombed, Y2K was a disaster, and even her so-called hit, The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, didn't perform as strongly as the media claimed. So, when you factor in her lack of box office appeal, her unearned arrogance, and the ongoing PR disaster surrounding Snow White, it's not hard to see why Disney is in serious trouble. And yet, for some reason, they're still banking on her to carry a $300 million film. The question is, will audiences actually show up? Or will Snow White become yet another Hollywood catastrophe? Stay tuned, because there's even more to this story. Lionsgate could distance themselves from a financially underwhelming installment without outright admitting that The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes was a failure. By setting the next Hunger Games movie decades later, they effectively sidestep Rachel Zegler's character, removing her from the equation without making it look like a direct response to her lack of box office appeal. Officially, the studio claims this decision was made to stay true to Suzanne Collins' upcoming book, which takes place further down the Hunger Games timeline. But behind the scenes, it's clear that Lionsgate is prioritizing profitability above all else. Collins isn't operating in a creative vacuum like she did with the original Hunger Games books. She and Lionsgate have an established business relationship. In fact, as of June 2024, Lionsgate issued a press release confirming that they're already collaborating with Collins to adapt her next book before it's even been released. Because Collins likely has a financial stake in the films, meaning she's just as invested in their success as the studio. When the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes failed to meet expectations, a course correction became necessary. Instead of doubling down on a sequel with Zegler, they're fast-tracking a completely different Hunger Games story, one that conveniently moves past the failed installment while giving Lionsgate and Collins a fresh shot at box office success. This entire situation raises an important question. If Rachel Zegler was truly the rising star that Hollywood keeps insisting she is, why is she being quietly phased out of one of the biggest franchises in modern cinema? The answer is obvious. Studios are realizing that audiences simply aren't showing up for her, and rather than admit defeat, they're shifting gears in a way that lets them cut their losses without drawing too much attention. Lionsgate and Suzanne Collins have essentially orchestrated a soft reboot, one that allows them to move forward without ever acknowledging the failure of Rachel Zegler's Hunger Games prequel or the quiet cancellation of her sequel. The bottom line is simple. If the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes had actually been profitable, Zegler would have gotten her follow-up film. But it wasn't, so she won't. Now, some of you might be wondering, why would a major Hollywood studio, like Lionsgate, and a best-selling author like Suzanne Collins go to such great lengths to cover up the fact that this movie flopped? Well, it all comes down to optics. These days, Hollywood studios rarely admit their failures, even when they're obvious. But in this case, there's an additional factor at play. If you visit Lionsgate's official website, you'll find an entire section dedicated to their DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. It's likely that the studio worried about how it would look if a company that constantly promotes diverse casting were to then remove a diverse lead actress from one of their biggest franchises. And if we take a step back, this is probably the same reason the mainstream media continues to shield Zegler. To be clear, diverse casting isn't the issue here. It's the idea that an actor should be protected from criticism or failure simply because of it. Being part of a diverse group doesn't automatically make someone the right fit for a role, nor does it make them a likable or marketable star. The future of Rachel Zegler Hollywood can keep showering Rachel Zegler with praise and awards. But at the end of the day, if audiences aren't showing up for her movies, she won't become a long-term box office star. And now, with Disney's Snow White just around the corner, the stakes have never been higher. If this movie fails to hit at least $1 billion at the global box office, don't be surprised if Zegler finds herself quietly phased out of Hollywood's biggest projects. Want to stay ahead of the curve with exclusive entertainment news and honest reviews? Make sure to like and subscribe so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.